climate change debate has moved on rapidly in recent months, and when I say the term climate change debate, let's all agree on one thing, that we are not here to debate whether this problem is happening any longer.
One of the founders of Extinction Rebellion himself only last year said, oh, by the way, this climate thing is just the excuse. The real agenda here is as Greta is now saying, and as many of others had said, it's about so-called decolonising the world, so that's just code for getting rid of capitalism around the world. The patriarchy, that's just another term for basically the West. And it's a radical communist socialist agenda.
Climate is a pretext for this. It's a pretext for control.
The rich nor the poor can consume as we do now.
Yeah. I mean, we need complete system change.
We have to change the way we live, the way we conduct society, and we have to be aware now that the changes will make life less comfortable. That is just how it is, though, and we should get on with it.
What they are requesting will turn the global economy upside down.
They want to reduce the extraction of coal and oil to zero by 2030. To zero. That means no more oil come out of the ground, no more coal be dug out of the ground.
The bottom line is that the entire world economy would collapse if you took the Greta Thunberg approach to travel and to moving goods around the planet. And it's ludicrous because the death toll that would follow from that would just be horrendous.
Also shows they don't put the welfare of ordinary people first, of particularly working people, the elderly who are most exposed. And the number of winter deaths you get in the United Kingdom of pensioners who can't afford their electricity bills. They turn down the heating because they're worried about how much money they're going to have left at the end of the month.
They're destroying the oil industry, they're destroying the coal industry to get rid of all that bad CO2-based stuff. They're creating a huge energy deficit. If it's not filled, the world will be back in the dark ages again, literally.
We are not for a moment suggesting this is an easy change to make. But we have to get the perspective very clear. Unless we make these changes, we are looking at an absolutely catastrophic future for our younger generation.
Changing our society will require some discomfort, some pain, some realignment of how we live.
There will be sacrifice, there will be things that we can't necessarily do, that we do at the moment, or we have to do less of.
Global warming is a tool of social control. It gives them a rationale to control every single aspect of life, of lifestyle.
But you don't think anybody should be allowed to fly apart from diplomats?
Well, I don't know about allowed to fly. I think it should be just made too expensive.
So driving and going on an airline becomes just the playground of the elite and the rich?
Not a playground, but if our cities were constructed in a way that meant you didn't have to travel very, very far, then actually cycling and walking would be not only getting you to where you needed to be, but also...
What about if I want to go on holiday to Austria or, say, Australia, because I want to go and visit some family? How do I get there?
By train?
This is insanity, and
it's in fact genocidal. If you cannot replace this huge glaring energy deficit that is going to be created by this plan, there are people who will literally die from this.
You know, and I think some of us have to be willing to die for this thing. And I know it sounds a bit melodramatic, but at what point are our lives really about sorting this thing out? We are killing life, you know, say it again, we're killing life on Earth. You know, what are you doing with your lives, you know? Are you in service to life, and what prayers are you making, and how are you putting yourself forwards? Psychedelic community. So more prayers, or, you know, neuroplasticity using your intentions. And so here I am praying that you're going to join Extinction Rebellion.
The science is absolutely clear. The climate is warming, global mean temperature is rising, and this is enhanced by human activity. The protesters I met last week says that. The young people I meet on a daily basis in my constituency tell me that. My family tell me that, and we, I think, need to act.
I think the reality is we can all agree that there is an emergency.
It is a crisis. It is a threat that all of us have to unite to meet.
Of course there's a climate emergency. The science is very clear.
this whole carbon dioxide, man-made global warming stuff. This is the most dangerous and frightening part of it, how such a lobbyist group, that's this IPCC, have been able to fool the whole world.
Yeah. Global warming, it was kind of created, the science of it was unearthed for political reasons. The policies they wanted needed to show that there'd be a catastrophe, what they call a transformation, some kind of ecological transformation to justify emissions cuts. So they back-engineered from that conclusion to the science and so forth.
To be able to sort of learn more is bonkers, right? Our kids don't need any more knowledge. We have all the knowledge we need. The thing we need now is action, and parents need to support their kids. It's their future.
Like, we are dying, and my future is at stake.
Shouldn't teachers and parents bring it back to a rational discussion and the facts?
Well, I mean, it's akin to child abuse. You saw during the election campaign those little kids who went and protested outside Scott Morrison's office, and they were hysterical with fear because they believe they've been told that the world's going to blow up in 12 years because of climate change.
I just don't know if they're going to do anything. And I'm so concerned with the fact that if they're not going to change anything, then what's going to happen to humankind? What's going to happen to the whole world if no one does anything?
A degree of alarmism is entirely justified, and arguably a reason why I think the Extinction Rebellion movement has struck a chord.
I think we were all impressed by the passion of children across the country who have taken action over the last few weeks, and those who had never been involved in protests before in Extinction Rebellion.
And what's the methodology of mobilisation? Disruption and sacrifice. You have to disrupt the system comes down, hits people on the head, that involves sacrifice. Sacrifice creates a backfiring effect, that means more people are mobilised, they come out into the street, game over.
Now, he is a bit of a, well, climate alarmist, some would say. The UK's got this net zero emission goal that he's pushing. That seems a little bit foolhardy, doesn't it? That doesn't exactly scream conservative politics. Just explain that to us, how that works.
It is public opinion that runs the free world. In fact, every great change throughout history has come from the people.
So I tried to send this thought to think it around the back of my brain, and the politicians actually behind the scenes, including this current government, are telling us that they need a social movement like ours to give them the social permission to do the necessary.
The government needs to take action because we've only got 12 years. They need to do something about it.
And the onus is on us now in this House to listen to the words of the young activists up and down the country and globally and put climate change at the forefront of everything that we do.
You know, we had huge Extinction Rebellion protests going on over there, so it is something that the Conservatives have to acknowledge, and I think it's a much better...
But isn't that allowing the lunatics to run the asylum?
And we can ensure that global leadership is something that Britain can show when it comes to the environment and climate change.
Let's respond to what a young generation is saying to us and raising an alarm. So by becoming the first parliament in the world to declare a climate emergency, we could, and I hope we do, set off a wave of actions from parliaments and governments all around the world.
We are here because last August a small group of school children decided to walk out of school to take a stand against climate change. They inspired a global movement. In one sense, this is a testament to the great power of protest.
So I think basically we're doing the job.
There's been plenty of discussion here and in the media over the last few weeks about the protests we've seen, the school strikes and the young people who forced the climate emergency onto the news agenda.
The media and the politicians, they needed to have an enemy. They needed to have a bad guy to be able to take down capitalism. And so they invented, it's bigger than World War II, they invented their own Hitler. And their own Hitler is anything that hurts the climate.
And people have said we need a system change. They tend to refer to a change in the energy system. I actually think we need to be bolder and go wider. We need to reform our whole economic system, and that requires reform of capitalism. Nothing else will be sufficient to response to the young people protesting. Nothing else will be radical enough.
If we're to declare an emergency, then it follows that radical and urgent action must be taken.
And we are stepping up
to the greatest challenge that we will face in our lifetime.
And I think it is absolutely right that the House seeks to commit to net zero emissions by 2050.
Complacency remains the greatest barrier to the response that's required, and we must therefore do everything we can possibly to bring home to the public both the nature of the threat we face and to build consensus for the kind of disruptive change that will inevitably have to take place as we respond to it.
Act now, change now, or be swept by those that will.
Legislating for net zero emissions by 2050 should be the absolute minimum we are aiming for, and it should spur a far more ambitious policy agenda.
We have so much consensus, why can't we just declare it today and all go back to our constituencies and start campaigning? Because we cannot be on the wrong side of history in this regard.
I want to say to those who laugh and joke at the millions of school children and street protesters who've taken part in climate strikes and brand them as truants or virtue signallers, I say this: you are on the wrong side of history and we will act without you. And frankly, look at this debate today and look how subscribed it's been. They've clearly got our attention.
There was movement in this House before the demonstrations that took place around this country. This is part of the movement.
It actually needs government to engage with the people and with civic society and to drive this agenda forward.
We are powering a new green revolution.
So I hope that we will get the message, we will do the radical things, and then the people who came here and got arrested did it for a purpose.
Well, it's a fake process anyway.
The environment belongs to all of us. The cause of climate change is a fight which should unite us.
And it is important that we don't disagree about that this afternoon and we send a message that we get it.
Have you got the message? Oh, that's all right then. Come on, guys, you can all go home now. The government has got the message.